Have you ever wondered if you're truly free when you buy products, choose services, or choose your job? Freedom feels natural, but in markets, it can be more complicated than it first appears. Are our choices genuinely ours, or are they shaped by hidden economic forces? In the 19th century, Britain was undergoing massive transformation. Factories, railways, and expanding cities created great wealth, but also poverty, inequality, and harsh working conditions. People began asking difficult questions about what liberty really meant in an industrial society dominated by capital and machines. John Stuart Mill, born in 1806, grew up during this turbulence. Trained from childhood as a philosopher and economist, he absorbed the debates of his time. Mill witnessed the rise of modern capitalism, but also its darker realities: overwork, child labor, and the concentration of wealth. Mill argued that liberty was not just a political principle, but also an economic necessity. Markets, he believed, thrive when people are free to create, innovate, and exchange ideas. Yet he warned that liberty must stop where it causes tangible harm to others. Unlike Adam Smith, who emphasized efficiency through the invisible hand, Mill added a moral dimension to economic life. He insisted that freedom is valuable only when it respects human welfare and dignity. Markets are not just wealth machines, but spaces where people's lives and futures are shaped. This perspective was radical in Mill's day. Most economists treated markets as mechanical systems of supply and demand, indifferent to human consequences. Mill broke with this tradition by insisting that fairness, ethics, and responsibility were just as important as competition. 200 years later, Mill's warning still feels urgent. From tech monopolies to gig economy exploitation, the question of liberty remains central to our economic lives. The balance between freedom and responsibility continues to shape the debates of our time. Mill's principle was deceptively simple. Liberty is vital for progress. People must be free to think, experiment, take risks, and innovate without unnecessary interference from authorities or monopolies. This liberty fuels creativity and competition, which in turn generate prosperity and social advancement. But liberty is not absolute. Mill's harm principle holds that freedom must stop where it directly injures others. Pollution, unsafe products, and predatory pricing are examples where the gain of one party inflicts disproportionate harm on the rest of society. This was the missing piece in Smith's vision. Smith trusted that competition would naturally balance markets and reward effort. Mill argued that without moral boundaries, competition can produce exploitation, making liberty meaningless for those with the least bargaining power. Consumer choice illustrates the problem well. On the surface, shoppers appear free to choose among endless products. Yet when a handful of companies dominate entire industries, that supposed freedom shrinks into illusion, with real alternatives quietly disappearing. The gig economy shows this tension clearly. Workers may appear free because they can choose their hours or gigs. Yet many face unpredictable wages, lack benefits, and have no real bargaining power. Conditions Mill would recognize as distorted liberty. Mill believed that true liberty in markets requires fairness and accountability. Without them, freedom becomes privilege reserved for the powerful, while the weak are trapped in dependency. His framework remains vital because it acknowledges both opportunity and responsibility. Consider modern food and beverage markets. Supermarket shelves may look packed with endless brands of cereal, snacks, or bottled drinks, but many are owned by just a handful of corporations. Mill would argue this is not liberty, but a hidden form of harm that undermines the individual's ability to make free choices. Smith might say efficiency is achieved when platforms grow large and dominant, lowering costs and connecting people. But Mill would counter that efficiency is meaningless if it erodes autonomy and well-being. True freedom requires more than cheaper goods. It requires control over one's life. The same conflict appears in labor markets. A factory might pay wages that look fair on paper, but if workers lack meaningful alternatives, liberty shrinks into survival. Mill insisted that markets should provide not only jobs but genuine power to choose. Environmental damage is another case where Mill's principle applies. Companies may profit from polluting industries, but liberty for one group cannot mean poisoned air and water for others. For Mill, protecting people from harm is the foundation of real freedom. Data privacy is a modern echo of Mill's ideas. Your personal information fuels much of today's economy, often without your consent or understanding. Mill would argue that liberty means genuine control over your life, including ownership of your digital identity. Government policies often apply Mill's balance of liberty and responsibility. Antitrust laws attempt to break up monopolies and restore competition. Worker protections like minimum wages or safety rules limit exploitation while preserving meaningful choice. Mill also supported inheritance taxation. He argued that excessive wealth concentration restricts liberty for future generations. Breaking monopolies of wealth ensures that freedom and opportunity are not hoarded but shared more broadly across society. Education was another key for Mill. Without knowledge, people cannot make meaningful economic choices. A truly free market, in his view, requires informed citizens who act with understanding, not passive consumers pushed along by advertising or manipulation. Adam Smith's invisible hand promised that self-interest left alone would benefit society. Mill admired Smith but added an essential qualifier. Self-interest works only when bounded by ethics. Markets need a moral compass, not just the mechanics of supply and demand. Smith saw freedom mostly as the absence of restraint. Mill redefined it as responsible liberty, freedom exercised with respect for the rights of others. Without this boundary, markets risk collapsing into exploitation, domination, and systemic inequality. Take the case of unregulated fast fashion growth. Smith's logic would suggest that expansion brings efficiency, cheaper prices, and wider access. Mill would warn instead that unchecked liberty creates waste, labor exploitation, and environmental damage, proving efficiency alone does not equal genuine freedom. Mill's contribution is that vital moral layer often missing in economic thought. For him, liberty was never just about the simple act of buying and selling. It was about living in a society where choices truly matter, where responsibility is shared across all, and where no individual's freedom is built upon the quiet sacrifice of another's. Mill reminds us that liberty in markets is about more than choice. It is about dignity and fairness. True freedom means opportunities are genuine, information is honest, and harm is minimized. Without these safeguards, liberty collapses into illusion. His harm principle echoes in modern policies, regulating pollution, protecting workers, and breaking up monopolies. These are not restrictions of liberty, but defenses of it. Mill teaches us that freedom without responsibility inevitably destroys itself from within. Smith explained how markets create wealth and efficiency. Mill explained how they must preserve humanity and justice. Together, their ideas show that efficiency and morality are not enemies, but necessary partners in sustainable freedom. So next time you shop, work, or vote on economic issues, ask yourself, am I really free in this marketplace? Or are my choices shaped by invisible monopolies, manipulative systems, and concentrated power? That question is Mill's legacy to us. John Stuart Mill's lesson is timeless. Markets thrive when liberty is paired with responsibility. Freedom must protect people, not just profits, if it is to endure. If you believe true liberty requires fairness, share this message and keep the debate alive. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring more ideas from history's greatest thinkers into today's world. Together, we can keep exploring how philosophy shapes the choices we face every day.